Hello, everybody. Today I will talk about classroom management for young learners. This is an important topic in teaching. I believe many people are wondering about this topic and how it is useful in teaching and learning. I will start by the introduction, then I'll move to the definition of classroom management and its components, and then I will move to the strategies for classroom management. Definition of classroom management. Classroom management refers to the ways in which student behavior, movement, and interaction during a lesson are organized and controlled by the teacher. Richards. This definition shows that classroom management includes student behavior, movement, interaction within the lesson, and how the teacher controls all that. As we can see here in this definition of discipline, classroom management encompasses the definition of discipline. So discipline is maintaining order and to keep group on task, moving ahead, and it has to do with punishment and misbehavior. But and also what is important is there is a proverb that says prevention is better than cure. So it is important to keep the primary activity flowing smoothly. And the best teachers are those who anticipate when misbehaviors are likely to occur and intervene early to prevent them. The most effective interventions are brief and almost private. So you have, even when you, especially while talking about discipline, the teacher has to be direct to the student and try to be precise and very limited and direct to the point. Classroom, so these are, now we'll move to parts of the classroom and the main components of classroom management. One of them is class rules. At the beginning, in fact, at the beginning of the school year, teachers should establish classroom rules, and they should discuss these rules with the students and the consequences, highlight the consequences of misbehavior. And we should post these classrooms. They should be clear to the students, and they should understand the consequences of misbehavior. This is very important. There is another component, is student seating. In fact, the way the students are seated in the classroom will often determine the dynamics of the lesson. So sometimes a simple change in the seating pattern can make an incredible difference to the group coherence and students' satisfaction and interaction. So it's very important to make sure that I will move and I will show you the importance of seating. In fact, in many cases, the seating has been a crucial element in the success or failure of the lesson. Because in some cases, the desks, as teachers from one school to another, things might differ. I mean, here I speak precisely about the seating of the students. In fact, in some cases, the desks are fixed to the ground, or the school has strict rules about not moving the furniture. So the teacher has to move and to manage within the limits and the freedom he has. In other words, while talking about student seating, there are some known ways of seating uh, such as the horseshoe. In fact, for smaller groups with adult or teenage students, I think the horseshoe shape, which is in the form of U, has so much advantages, has so many advantages, and it's very well known, especially for teachers. Yeah, be it in during teaching, or let's say and even for coaching, sometimes you find this way in workshops, and depending on the lesson you can choose. There are different preferences for seating. Teachers have arrangements. Yes, so in large groups sometimes they prefer groups seated around small tables. It's often a choice, and this is probably the best option for the larger classes. But whatever the seating pattern you choose or is imposed on you, the class is likely to be more successful if you keep the following principles in mind. Try to maximize, as a teacher, try and maximize eye contact with the students. Make sure that the students are seated at a comfortable distance from each other, and think in advance about how you will organize changing patterns. If you have, for example, group work, how you will organize, or pair work. So depending on the activity that you are going to work on or you will choose in your lesson, you can manage and choose the best seating for the students that will fit the activity that you will work on that specific day. So not every day will be the same seating. Even the students might get bored from the working with the same person, or so it's better to change from time to time to break up with the monotony and the classroom, let's say, routines. There is another component which is students' names. You can make two sets of names, let's say names on tags, for a child, or on the table or desk, the student's desk. Students can also choose, for example, to wear a tag on their neck, on which is highlighted their names, especially if they are new to you. Yes, they can put something on their desks showing their names. It's easy for them to call them by their names, not just you, or so it's better to call the student by his or her name. This will show that he has a value. He's a different person from the others. Yes, this is very important to call the students by their names. There is another component which is praise and encouragement. So for example, there are different ways of praising and encouraging the students. For example, you can invite a good student to sit at your chair or your desk, let's say, during snack time or work time, for example. You have also to praise the students when their jobs are well done, and not just say, okay, that's okay, yes. And there could be rewards for good conduct and behavior as well. For good behavior, we can assign a certain or special reward or certificate for those who are behaving well, because behavior is also part of the classroom, let's say, management, and the classroom, let's say, conduct that we should highlight. Praise and encouragement. Use praise when praise is due. If the kids do what you want them to do, it should get some positive reinforcement. Say well done, great job, etc. You can give a bookmark as a special reward for good workers, or give a special certificate to good workers and good, let's say, students. This will encourage them and will make a positive feeling on them. Monitoring students' behavior. Coming to this point, okay, make it private. So make it private, call to desk, whisper, non-verbal cues, use, let's say, certain gestures. Briefly talk to student and assess penalties whenever you, let's say, you put, let's say, a kind of punishment, whatever it is, you should assess it, whether it's workable or not. Don't give, for example, don't give, let's say, while talking about punishment, don't give, I advise you to not to give more work as punishment, and don't take away the child's playtime as punishment. Maximize the eye contact, move closer, redirect attention to task, ask and tell the students to stop inappropriate behavior, and quite often communicate positive expectations to students, convey confidence in them and the students' ability to do well. So punishment always breeds, let's say, bad behavior. Too much punishment, I mean, breeds bad behavior. So it's better not to punish too much. Try to think about the positive way, or see it from a positive way, see things from a positive way. It's better not to, and to give a chance for the students to correct their, let's say, misbehavior. Okay? Teacher talk and drawing attention. Turn off, for example, there are different ways of drawing the students' attention. For example, turn off the lights, clap a pattern with your hands. Make sure not to speak when the children aren't listening and ready. Just wait. You can say freeze, and everyone will stop right where they are, like a statue. And then you can say back or melt, and they, when you are ready for them to move again. So you should establish, for example, a signal for getting the students' attention or the group's attention. There are, for example, you can practice, for example, numbers like 1, 2, 3, eyes on me. And we should also establish good listening habits. For example, let's say for a story time, sometimes we read and listen, and sometimes we read and discuss, but we should always highlight that students should listen, should always listen. Giving instruction. While talking about young learners, so it is better to make your instructions for primary students or for young learners precise and concise. Don't talk too much. Try to be very limited and specific and to the point. You can use, for example, puppets to help with the classroom management. For example, puppets can whisper in the teacher's ear, and they can write messages to the class, and they can draw attention, the students' attention, and they can, let's say, convey a message to a specific student. Compliment leadership in students. Example, oh, I like the way Ahmed is ready. This phrase will cause everyone to turn to look at the ready student. That means to Ahmed, and to get ready also. Use the same, I advise you to use the same standards for everyone, no favorites. So treat the students as equals, no favorites, okay? Using pair and group work. In fact, one of the successful ways, if the teacher is resourceful and skillful enough to motivate his or her students to participate in the lesson, is to use pair or group work appropriately. So depending on the activity, there are certain cases, for example, where you can use, let's say, role play. For example, you can use group, or in a project you can use, for example, in a project you can use group work or pair work. Yes, you can let the students sometimes choose whether they want to work in pair or in a group, depending on the activity you are working on. In certain, let's say, role plays, students can choose to, you can assign roles, and the students also, they can themselves choose the role they want to play in a, let's say, a role play activity, let's say, doctor and patient, customer and shop assistant. So there are role play and, let's say, pair work are very important, and let's say group work, depending on the activity. And it's good to use a variety of ways, let's say, to in let's say classroom teaching, so that the students will not get bored. So it's better to vary. Sometimes you break up with the, let's say, the pace of the lesson through pair or group work, and sometimes it depends on the activity that you would choose, which will, let's say, uh, let you choose either group or pair work. Using pair and group work, for example, learners can help each other while working on different types of tasks, such as writing dialogues, as we have said, interviews, drawing pictures, making comments about them, play roles. So in these different let's say activities, through the different types of tasks, you can choose whether students will work in pairs or in groups. Setting time limits. Time is always important, especially in teaching and in classroom management in particular. So you should, first of all, you should set time to each activity when you are planning your lesson, so that you would know if you would be able to finish your objectives or not. Second, you should tell your students about the time assigned for each activity when you give them a task to do in class. In fact, your students should gradually be aware of the importance of the time issue and respect it. So always, whenever you assign a task for the students to work on, just let them know about the time limit in which they will work or do such an activity. It is very important, so that you finish your lesson and you make sure that you finish your activities and you achieve your objectives within the, let's say, the time limits. Role play. This is a technique to vary the pace of the lesson. The role play activity is to motivate the students and to help the less motivated learners to take part in the lesson. Certain tasks in the student's book are followed by a role play activity, where it becomes a necessity to undergo such an activity. Example, we have the hide item and guessing game, dramatizing an interview of, let's say, customer and shop assistant, doctor and patient conversation, etc. Tasks for early finishers. This especially happens when students finish an assignment while other students are still working on it. That's why, as a teacher, you need to include an early finisher activity with almost every assignment. Think in advance for possible activities, options including, let's say, extension activity related to the current topic, or journal writing, silent reading, educational games. So you should always be endowed, let's say, with extra activities for those, let's say, early finishers, and so that they will not, let's say, interrupt the lesson or will not be a source of, let's say, noise in the classroom. And at the same time, they keep on working. Whole class feedback. In fact, from my own experience, I began to realize that generally it was only the stronger or the most confident students who would shout out the answers. And whenever I look and let's say at individual work, sometimes I get, let's say, it becomes a surprise that they didn't always have the correct, let's say, the majority, or let's say a large group of the students didn't have the correct answer, and more importantly, they didn't know what the correct answer was. So it's better for the feedback to be checked through students' response on a written form paper. On each one on a, let's say, each student's response on a written form paper, so that you can, let's say, assess and understand to what extent students have, let's say, grasped and understood the lesson, and to what extent, let's say, your objectives have been fulfilled. Using the whiteboard. Make sure that students easily see the board. This is very important. Number 2, have your lesson objectives clear for the students. Write them on the board and get the kids to read them, or at least to know about them. Third, these clear objectives provide a guide to what you want to achieve and can be the basis of the lesson structure. So it's a kind of map on the board which will help show the students where you are going with the lesson. Thank you very much. I hope that you have gained some resourceful and good ideas from this presentation. All the best from Mr. Nauman Amara.